Let me move to Ritika Acharya. Some time ago, I was reading a theory of social psychology, a theory of creation of institutions. The theory argued that it's about the focus of men and women in creating relationships. That was the essence of the theory. The theory argued with evidence that men would create a network, a large network of relationships. But what is the nature of those relationships? The number of relationships, as exemplified in the network of relationships, is quite large. But the essence of such large network of relationships is essentially shallow.
Yeah.
Men have huge number of relationships, but most of those relationships are essentially shallow. But the network and the number of relationships that the women create is smaller in number, but they have depth. Why is it that in the very nature of the relationships that the men and the women create, there is shallowness and depth? The theory proceeds to argue that men created institutions in the society. They created some civilizational institutions which required them to create a big network of relationships. But women had to create family as an institution, which required depth. Therefore, the nature itself divided men and women in the focus and the nature of the relationships that they created. In the West, the dominant narrative of women-centric thinking is gender equality. What is that dominant women-centric narrative that India has to offer to the West and to the world? Should we concentrate on this gender equality as a dominant, narrative of women-centric thinking, or do we have an alternative thinking? So, what do you have to say on this?
Namaskara. Everyone can, am I audible?
Yes.
So, I just want to say before I start off, I just learned few. My Kannada is very weak. I'm married to a Mogavera, but my Kannada and my Tulu is very weak. Encha Ullada, Ullara, and Hegedri. Namaskara, Namaste. As we say in Rajasthan, Kamagari. And as we say in my family, Jai Shri Krishna. What you've asked me is a very, very interesting question and has almost become the base of my life. As a woman, it's funny that you ask these questions as a woman and you have to always try and explain it in a very interesting manner. I say interesting because in today's world and in today's generation, I was listening to all the other speakers. They bring their own expertise. But the point that I want to put forward here is connecting to the youth and connecting to the young of our country. Now, more than 50% of our population is under the age of 30. When I meet women, when I meet young girls, and it's funny because my younger sister is accompanying me today here at the event. When I talk to them and when I try to understand from them what is it that they want from India, what is it that they want from Bharat. When I was starting off my channel Bharat Voice, and I thought initially I'll only take issues related to women. But of course I concentrated on everything else. One of the very interesting episodes, one of the most popular episodes on that Bharat Voice channel became talking about menstruation. And while we've talked enough about menstruation, we've talked about how India needs to do better work, and you'll see enough campaign around, oh, we don't have sanitary pads, girls are dropping out of college. The very basic question was, do we even know why we don't visit temples when we are menstruating? Funnily, very, very few women, my mother, my grandmother, the girls around me, yeah. So the girls around me Nobody couldn't answer it. Nobody could answer it. Why we don't visit temples during menstruation? The reason for that is basically because our parents have not been able to answer it and to explain it to us logically. And to explain it in a very simplistic fashion. When we talked in that episode, explaining to them that, there's a whole history behind it. There's a whole science behind it. While they may not be interested in history that much, but they understood the logical reasoning behind it. Okay, it affects my bodies. It affects my body in a certain way when I'm menstruating at that time. That episode became so popular because women of every age was watching that. And women were then forwarding it to their other friends. Let's say I'm a woman who works in a corporate environment. And I'm so-called modern, and I watch Netflix and Amazon. And I follow everything on social media. I follow fashion. But I can't answer my own traditions. I can't answer the questions to my own traditions. So why are we not able to connect to our own traditions? The reason for that could simply be that we have also not been able to answer to the young what the reason really is in a simplistic fashion. And you got to listen to them. You got to hear their voice. So when I talk to the young women, they will say that because we're talking about swa here, they would say that I probably don't understand the concepts of swarajya, swadharma, swatantra. But I want independence. I understand the term azadi, and I want azadi from people telling me what I should wear as a woman. Please don't tell me what I should wear. Please don't tell me that I should not wear a sleeveless. Please don't tell me that I should not wear a hijab. Please don't tell me that, I should not wear so and so. When I talk to these women, it's also interesting because working with young, and because I worked with many youngsters on ground, meeting them every day, talking to them and understanding them. As a journalist, I have less of my views and more of listening to them and getting their views across. So when you talk to them, these women are intrinsically very, very desi, intrinsically very, very Bharatiya. But they don't like to be told as to, oh, don't do this, don't do that. And their ideas are so unique, their ideas are so brilliant. And like you mentioned, women, the sort of relationships that they develop, the sort of capability they have to give back to society is greater, no offense to men, but it's greater than men at times. And that's what I have taken on as my aim in my whole life, as the groundwork that I do, to get that out of women. What do you want to do? So if you have to connect with the young, I can see those young women sitting there, those youngsters sitting there. If I have to connect to them, and if I have to connect to the youngsters sitting there watching me, listening to me, you got to first understand what do they like. You like Netflix, you like Amazon, okay. What do you like to do? You like to travel. You like to go outside India. What is it that you like outside India that you don't like in India, or would you would want to replicate? Like Shishadri said, that let's stop calling it very, Hindu. This is a Hindu solution and this is a very, very Indian solution. You got to understand that they do look up to the West. We cannot deny that. But when you talk to them, they're intrinsically very, very desi. When I was talking to my younger cousin, and I asked her, what is it that you like about India? Or do you like US more because she's been to the US? She said, no, US is nice. But we are better. And I said, why are we better? So she said, because we are strong women. And I was like, why do you think you are strong women? She said, because their women are more than, they're seen as objects. We are seen as women who can contribute inside our homes, in society, and entrepreneurs. And so many women are now, contributing in terms of IT tech. So we can learn from them, we can talk to them, we can understand those young. And that is why they have more capacity to give back to society. But they need to be told in very simplistic fashion, in a very simple manner, what is our Bharatiya culture, what are our traditions, what do they mean, what's the logic behind it. If I'm just going to tell a youngster that, stop wearing what you're wearing, she's not going to follow, she's not going to listen, is probably going to get extremely put off. But if I explain to them that this happens because this is the beauty of our culture, our Sanskriti, then they would get it. And then they would propagate it elsewhere, and then you're instilling a very deep sense of pride in them in, again, a very, very logical fashion. So that's why I feel that the women of India are stronger. One last thing I'd like to mention. There was an interesting excerpt. I met somebody from Mexico, and we made friends with someone from Mexico. And that person came to meet us. And my husband couldn't join because he was a little late. So he was talking to me, and then my husband joined afterwards. And I would place the order for the food. I would decide where to sit. I would pay the bill. I would talk to the waiter and tell him that, please make the food according to the Mexican person's choice. Add less spices. So after the whole meeting got over, before he could leave, he said that, oh, so you're the boss in the house. And I said, no, I'm not the boss in the house. The women in India are the boss in the house, and they do take a lot of decisions. But without demeaning the importance of men. Men have an equal importance. So the feminism has gone the wrong way. Feminism is not demeaning the importance of men sitting next to you, men in your house, our fathers, our husbands, but understanding what you're capable of. And also, like I said, instilling the sense of pride in them in a very simple fashion.
Okay. Organizers have told me that our time is up, but still, we can take one question at least. So, if you have any question to ask, you can specifically direct the question to the resource persons.
Probably it's the
Namaste, Akshata Vajpayee here. I am also working I'm to them in a nice manner so that they can understand and follow it, practice it. So I feel we are lagging in explaining it in the right way. Maybe when you talk about why should we do arti in the puja room or to the god, and when we say that, no, it is our culture, that is the reason we need to do. But we forget to say that there is a science behind it. There is a reason behind it. And what is that reason? This is one example. And in every...
Please keep the question short.
Yeah. So, this is how it goes. My question is, are we lagging in explaining the science behind our culture? Is it the main reason?
I got your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Again, this is similar to what I was explaining just now, that we sometimes lack the means of explaining to our youngsters, to our youth, to people around us, how do we explain it as to why we need to do something, why we need to follow our traditions, and why we need to do a particular practice. It's funny, but I'd like to put it in this way, that working with the young is almost like a project. And working with anybody for that matter is almost like a project you're taking on yourself. Like I've taken a project. So if I'm working with, let's say, a youngster or a group of youngsters who I want to motivate, and I want to tell them that, why Archana is important, why going to a temple is important, you need to spend time. Now we live in a world of quick fix. We have our Zomatos and Swiggies and our food delivering to our house, and even our clothes are getting delivered to our house, and our parlor service is getting delivered to our house. But there's no quick fix in terms of guiding youth or guiding the people around you. You need to spend time with them. You need to understand, like I said, what you like. You like a Netflix, you like an Amazon, what do you like to do? What do you like? What are your views? How would you want to give back to society? Why don't you like politics? Most youngsters will tell you that I'm not interested in politics. And why are you not interested in politics? Oh, I think it's complicated. Why do you think it's complicated? When you keep asking them a question onto another question onto another question, then they can answer it. I think I don't like politics because I don't understand it. Why don't you understand it? Now are you, let's say you're 20 years old, you have the right to vote. Would you vote for a party? Yeah, I will vote for a party. Why would you vote for a party? Well, I would vote because, they would give development. So that becomes their focus. Okay, so now you're talking to a youngster who wants to focus on development. Or let's say you're talking to a youngster or a person around you who wants to focus on culture. That the temples in my area are not being taken care of, so their focus is culture. So you need to spend time. It's like a project and therefore understanding the personality of that person, and that's psychology for you. And that's also a little bit for journalism there for you, because if you need to ask 20 questions to understand that person and therefore proceed.
I thank all the panelists for their participation in this discussion. We had some excellent analysis by Shri Sheshadri Chariji and Shri Vikram Sampath, and very thoughtful views from Dr. P.L. Dharma and Ritika Acharya. I thank them and thank the participation of all.
I thank Dr. Nandan Prabhu as well for moderating this session. Now, I request Dr. C.N. Shankar Rao, President of Akhila Bharatiya Sahitya Parishad Dakshina Kannada Unit, to hand over this token of gratitude by way of a memento. First, to Dr. P.L. Dharma, Registrar Evaluation, Mangalore University. Thank you, sir. It was a privilege to have you here. Next, to journalist Ritika Acharya. It was wonderful to listen to you, ma'am. I request